Hi, welcome to another dose of virtual vitamin Z. My name is Stephen, and I'm the curator of Humane Education for the Detroit Zoological Society. Today, I'm going to be sharing our Humane Education activity and action of the week with you. And this is an activity that you can do that'll give you a chance to develop some of the attitudes, knowledge, and skills of a humane individual, and then an action that you can take that'll give you a chance to put those into practice and help animals and the environment. Before I get started though, I want to ask you all a question. And that question is, what do the following animals have in common? I'm going to be showing you some pictures of different animals, and all of these animals have something in common, and I want you to think about what that might be, and then add your thoughts and your answers in the comment section. So the first animal is this grizzly bear here. And the second animal is this bald eagle. So think about, what does this bald eagle have in common with the grizzly bear? And if you think you know, go ahead and add it in the comment section. The third animal is this African spurred tortoise. So there's something that this tortoise, the bald eagle, and the grizzly bear all have in common. If you think you know what it is, go ahead and add it in the comment section. And then finally, this horse here, this thoroughbred horse. So this horse, the tortoise, the eagle, grizzly bear, all have something in common. What do you think it is? So here they all are together. Now, one thing they all have in common is that they're all obviously animals, but that's not what I was thinking of. Another thing they all have in common is that they all live at the Detroit Zoo, but that's not actually what I was thinking of either. A third thing that they all have in common is that they were all rescued by the Detroit Zoological Society. Yeah, exactly, Amanda. They were all rescued by the Detroit Zoological Society. And they have all found sanctuary at the Detroit Zoo. And because of that, so I'm going to tell you a little bit more about their stories, and then I'm going to share what our activity is. So these three grizzly bears, Boo, Mike, and Thor, they were orphaned when they were young, which means that they lost their parents. And they lost their parents at an age when they weren't able to fend for themselves. And because of that, they needed to find sanctuary. They weren't able to make it on their own in the wild. And fortunately, the Detroit Zoological Society was able to help rescue them, and they now live in an expansive habitat at the Detroit Zoo. This tortoise, Tubby, was found walking along the 10-mile service road outside of the zoo, and we were able to provide care for him as well. So we were able to provide him sanctuary at the Detroit Zoo. These two bald eagles, as well as a third eagle, these two are Captain Marvel and Mr. America, were injured in different accidents and were no longer able to survive in the wild. They weren't able to fly, so they wouldn't be able to survive. And so again, we were able to provide them sanctuary. And then finally, these thoroughbred horses, Trio and Buster, are former race horses. And when they were no longer able to race, they were in need of a home. And the Detroit Zoological Society was able to work with another organization to provide them a home. And you might be surprised to see horses at the zoo. And that leads me to some vocabulary that we'll talk about. But before I get into the vocabulary, I wanted to share something that you might not have seen at the zoo. This is a mural in the Humane Science Lab at the zoo. And this lists some of our rescued animals. And so you can find some of those animals that we just learned the stories of on this mural. For example, Mike, Boo, and Thor are reflected right here in the bottom right. You can find Buster over here. And then you can find one of our bald eagles up in the top right area. Now, you won't see Tubby, but what you will see is that there's a blank space. And the reason for that blank space is that at the Detroit Zoological Society, animal rescue isn't just a part of our past, it's also a part of our present and our future. And what that means is that we've left a space here because we know that we will continue to rescue animals. For example, we rescued Tubby after this mural was created. And so that leads me to our activity. And our activity is that we're going to be telling stories about some times when we've helped animals. And by doing this activity, we'll be increasing our reverence, respect, and responsibility for other animals, while also strengthening our empathy, creativity, and literacy skills. And to do this, all we'll need are a field journal or a piece of paper and then a pen or a pencil. We can also tell the stories out loud if we want to. And this brings me to some of those terms. I had talked about animal welfare, animal rescue, sanctuary, and then intrinsic value, but I want to explain these a little bit more. So animal welfare is one of the Detroit Zoological Society's mission pillars. And animal welfare refers to the practice of ensuring that individual animals have everything they need to survive and then also to thrive. And one way that we practice that mission pillar of animal welfare is by rescuing animals. And so as an organization, we're able to help animals in the wild who are injured, animals who are no longer able to make it on their own in the wild, or are living in unfortunate circumstances, and who we can help. And one way we do that is provide sanctuary. And sanctuary refers to a situation where we provide them everything that they need to survive and thrive, and we don't ask for anything in return because they deserve that. And this leads me to the term intrinsic value. Intrinsic value refers to something mattering just because they exist and not necessarily because of any usefulness to others. So we know that all individual animals have intrinsic value, which means that it doesn't matter what they look like, what species they come from. If we can help them, we help them. And if you're watching this video, I imagine that you share those values with us. You agree that all animals have intrinsic value. And so that leads me to this activity. I want us to reflect on a time when we've helped an animal. Maybe we can't help an animal in the same way that the zoo can, because the zoo has resources and abilities to help animals like grizzly bears that we can't and shouldn't. But maybe we've helped companion animals. Maybe we've helped insects. Maybe we've helped spiders in our home. Maybe we've helped local wildlife in some way. And so I think that it's good for us to recognize what we've already done so we can feel inspired to continue doing more. So to do this activity, I want you to think about a time when you have helped an animal. And I want you to tell that story from two perspectives. First of all, from your perspective, and then I want you to put yourselves in the animal's paws or claws and tell it from the animal's perspective and think about what that experience of being rescued might have been like for them. And one way to do this is that we can, use this tool here to gather some information as we reflect. You don't have to, but, I encourage you to use this tool if you'd like. And what this is it's just a chart, and so we can add who was involved in this story, what happened, where did it happen, when did it happen, and why does it matter? I think that's a really important part of the end. Why does it matter? And so I did this based on a story of an animal who I had rescued. And so who was involved? Well, it was me. I was a teacher at a boarding school at the time. And so my students were also involved, and my colleagues, the other teachers. And we found a dog and her 4 puppies who had wandered onto our school campus. And these puppies were really sick, and they didn't have a home. So we all came together and worked together to care for these animals and ultimately find them all homes. And this was at a school in Highlands, Texas, where I was teaching at, and it was about 7 years ago. And it matters because if we hadn't done anything, those animals, maybe they wouldn't have survived. And it also mattered to me personally because it showed me how powerful humane education can be. I had been teaching my students about humane education, and it was really inspiring to see everybody come together and go out of their way to help these animals. And so now I'm going to tell this story from one of those animals' perspectives, one of the puppy's perspectives. And I've actually got a picture of him as an adult right there. Whoops. And so in this case, from the puppy's perspective, it was him, my siblings, my mom, and then a group of humans. And we were all really sick, so our mom led us to some humans who could help us. And they took me to another human who made me feel better, and then they found me a home. And this was in a place with fields and buildings near where I was born. And it was about 49 years ago, because obviously I'm using dog years. And if the humans hadn't helped me and my siblings, we wouldn't have made it. I wouldn't be telling this story right now. And so it showed me that humans can be kind. And like I said, this is that dog. His name is Nemo. And he was really sick when we found him. He also had an injury to his front limb, and you can see that he had to have surgery on that. But he grew up, and he was, he's an adult now, and he's surviving and thriving. So the reason I'm sharing that story isn't to, highlight what I've done, but it's to emphasize that we can all do things to help animals, and we all already probably have. And it's really important to think about that to inspire us to continue doing that good work. And it's also really important to think about it from the animal's perspective because, we might see a spider and take that spider outside. And from our perspective, it's no big deal, right? Just a spider. But from that spider's perspective, that's, a huge deal. So, it's important that we give ourselves credit for all those things we do to help. And so this week, I would encourage you to reflect on that, to reflect on, things you've already done to help animals and how you're, joining us, the Detroit Zoological Society, on our journey of animal welfare. And speaking of which, today is Giving Tuesday. And if you do support the Detroit Zoological Society through a donation, that'll help us continue our work. So that's another way that you can take action to help animals in the environment. So thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you for your time. If you're looking for more vitamin Z today, I would encourage you to tune in at 2 o'clock when my colleague Akila will be sharing some more information about the work that we do to help and some more activities and actions that you can do this week. So until then, thanks so much. Have a great day and stay safe. Bye.